Recently, the Supreme Court declined to review both a rifle ban challenge and a magazine ban challenge. But now, a case that the court previously granted, vacated, and remanded has moved back into focus, and it has quickly become even more important. In this case, the Trump Department of Justice made a clear statement. They believe that bans on rifles and magazines do, in fact, violate the Second Amendment. This is a major development and could change the direction of the fight. Right now, there are two critical cases that have been consolidated and are being reviewed by the Third Circuit sitting en banc. These cases deal directly with New Jersey's statewide ban on certain rifles and magazines. One of these cases was recently sent back to the lower court after the Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling in Bruin. The court instructed the lower courts to reevaluate the issue under the new framework established in Bruin. That remanded case became two consolidated challenges, A&AMP, JRPC vs. Platkin, and Cheeseman vs. Platkin. When the district court issued its ruling, it came out with a confusing and contradictory analysis. On one hand, the judge ruled that New Jersey's ban on the Colt AR-15 was unconstitutional and had to be struck down. But in the same decision, the court refused to rule on bans against other rifles, pistols, and shotguns. When it came to the magazine ban, the court admitted that magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds are protected arms under the Second Amendment's text. Yet the court still concluded that the state could outlaw them completely. This inconsistent ruling was immediately appealed to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and arguments were heard on July 1st. But something unexpected happened. Before the three-judge panel could issue a ruling, the Third Circuit itself stepped in and decided to take the case en banc. That means the full court, rather than just 3 judges, will now decide the outcome. Sensing the significance of this move, the state of New Jersey quickly filed a supplemental brief, urging the Third Circuit to follow what the Second Circuit recently did in upholding rifle and magazine bans. But this shift also drew in a surprising response. The Trump DOJ filed an amicus brief, directly arguing that magazine and rifle bans are unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. This is a huge step, and it adds major weight to the challenge. With the en banc panel now reviewing the case, and with the federal government officially siding against New Jersey's bans, this case has gained enormous importance, not just for New Jersey, but for the entire country. Back in 2018, New Jersey passed Assembly Bill 2761, which banned the possession of magazines holding more than 10 rounds. That law sparked years of legal battles, eventually reaching the Supreme Court in 2022. The case was then sent back down for reconsideration after Bruin. The district court combined multiple challenges, ruling on both the magazine and rifle bans in a way that clearly resisted the Supreme Court's decision. The district judge even wrote that it was hard to accept the Supreme Court's view that certain firearms regulations are off the table because, in their view, dangerous individuals misuse these firearms. Still, the court admitted it was bound to follow Bruin to some extent, but then issued a fragmented decision, protecting only the Colt AR-15, while leaving other bans intact and upholding the magazine ban. That flawed ruling is now in the hands of the full Third Circuit, which will issue a much more consequential decision. The court is now made up of 7 Republican-appointed judges and 6 Democrat-appointed judges, and with the Trump DOJ actively opposing New Jersey's bans, the pressure on the state has never been higher. Recently, the state of New Jersey submitted a supplemental brief to the en banc panel, urging the court to follow the approach taken by the Second Circuit in a similar case involving rifle and magazine bans. This move clearly shows that New Jersey is scrambling to defend its laws now that the en banc panel has stepped in on its own initiative. But things have taken an even bigger turn, and potentially a worse one for New Jersey. Harmeet Dillon, on behalf of the Trump administration, has just filed an amicus brief with the Third Circuit's en banc panel. In this filing, the administration directly challenges New Jersey's bans, arguing that both the rifle ban and the magazine ban are unconstitutional and should be struck down. In other words, the Trump DOJ is siding with the plaintiffs against the state of New Jersey. The brief lays out some critical points. First, it emphasizes that the Second Amendment guarantees the right of the people to keep and bear arms. According to the filing, it is undisputed in this case that AR-15 rifles qualify as arms. The reasoning is straightforward. The Supreme Court itself has acknowledged that, at the time of the founding, all firearms were considered arms. The brief then addresses two important principles that have confused lower courts. The first is that the Second Amendment does not limit the right to possess and carry arms only for self-defense or sporting purposes. Instead, it protects the right to keep and bear arms for all lawful purposes, including the common defense. History and tradition back this interpretation. The second principle is the so-called common use test. This test holds that the Second Amendment protects firearms that are in common use among law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. While some courts have criticized this test, the Supreme Court has consistently made clear that it remains the guiding standard. Not only does it appear in modern rulings, but it also has deep roots in both English and American legal history. The brief explains that these two principles together form the core protection of the Second Amendment. Lawmakers cannot impose complete bans on arms that are commonly owned and used by lawful citizens for legitimate purposes. When applied to New Jersey's laws, the conclusion is clear. A total ban on AR-15 rifles and magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds runs directly against the Constitution. Rifles, such as the AR-15, are widely owned across the United States for lawful reasons, including self-defense, sporting, and even for the broader purpose of common defense. Because of that, the Constitution protects the right of New Jersey residents to own and possess them. While regulations that align with the nation's historical tradition of firearm laws may be acceptable, outright bans like the ones New Jersey has enacted cannot stand. The brief goes on to state that this court must make it absolutely clear the Second Amendment does not permit New Jersey to ban the most popular rifle in the United States, the AR-15, nor does it allow the state to outlaw magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, which are even more widely owned than AR-15s themselves. In short, the Trump DOJ is arguing that a total ban on rifles and magazines like the ones targeted by New Jersey is unconstitutional. Now, it's worth pointing out something important here. In their arguments, there are subtle hints that they might be open to some level of regulation on these firearms or magazines. However, they make it very clear that what the state of New Jersey has done, imposing a complete categorical ban, crosses the line and violates the Constitution. That's something we'll need to keep an eye on moving forward. But overall, this is a significant development. The Trump DOJ has officially stepped in to support this challenge, taking the position that New Jersey's rifle and magazine bans must be struck down. This case is now set to be argued before the banc panel of the Third Circuit on October 15th. That's coming up quickly, and it will be a major moment in the fight over these laws. There's also the possibility that the Trump DOJ could request additional time during the oral arguments to present their case directly on behalf of the plaintiffs, just as they did in a similar challenge in the Seventh Circuit. If that happens here, it could add even more weight to the argument against New Jersey's bans. As this case develops and new information comes out, I'll continue to keep you updated. This is a case with national significance, and its outcome could have ripple effects well beyond New Jersey. If you found this video helpful and want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by subscribing and sharing this content. Thank you so much for your continued support, and I'll see you in the next update.